Well, tonight we are discussing at length with Trustco about Trustco Holdings activities, and joining me in studio is Trustco Holdings Deputy Chief Executive Officer Quinton Z van Rooyen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Of course, as we know, your exit from commercial banking was a significant move. What led to this decision?
Celma, first of all, thanks for having me. I think that the group's exit from commercial banking has been seen as a massive development in the economic landscape of Namibia. But in fact, for Trustco itself, the banking portfolio and the banking business in the group represented less than 1% of the total assets of the group. So there's been a lot of media and press and activity around this, especially with the colourful history of how banks have come and gone in Namibia. But for Trustco Group, the exit from banking business was a simple commercial reason.
With that came some concerns as to whether those that have deposited in that particular bank, if the funds are still safe or not. Can you just clarify that situation?
Yes, certainly. That's the first question any depositor should have about a bank. And we, together with the regulator, before we embarked on this process, we made sure that each and every deposited and Namibian dollar was safe. So we have held at a custodian account with Bank of Namibia every single deposit plus all interest that was earned on those deposits. And we recently made an announcement in the press that depositors can claim back all their deposits. I think the final date is February 2025, and anything that remains after that will be placed in a guardian fund with the Bank of Namibia. So each deposit is safe. No depositor will lose any money on Trustco Bank's exit from commercial.
Have they started collecting their funds?
We've actually seen the process commence in the last couple of weeks. To date, we've released about a third or 30% of deposits that were claimed, and the process is well on its way and running quite smoothly.
But you exited before you were granted your license. Why this particular timing?
So actually, Trustco Bank was an acquisition that the group did in 2015-16, if I recall correctly. The former Fides Bank Namibia was an acquisition that the group did. We then acquired Fides Bank that already had a commercial banking license, with a view to transform it into the next commercial bank in Namibia. Obviously, some time has passed, and our plans didn't materialize exactly as we envisaged. But the banking license was granted to the former group, and we acquired it about 8 years ago.
But there's also a misconception, or rather an impression, that Trustco Group Holdings and Bank of Namibia has some sort of dispute or disagreement.
Let's not make any secret about that. We didn't agree with Bank of Namibia on a lot of things. But ultimately, both of us, Trustco Group and Bank of Namibia, we ensured that depositors were safe, and that's the most crucial point.
But are there any other challenges, perhaps, that you experienced in the sector that could have led, perhaps, to the delinking or exiting from the commercial?
Certainly. So Namibia's got a very well-established banking sector. Predominantly from South African banks. One or two Namibian banks have done very well. But we've seen over the course of the last 2 decades that no new bank has really made it in the Namibian banking sector. So that's where our differences with BON actually started, how we aim to bring the bank to the Namibian landscape, and how the traditional regulation environment was set up. I don't think it's conducive to bring a new bank into a Namibian sector.
And what is the current stance now between the two institutions?
So right now we'll probably go into settlement, try and wrap up all the litigation. I mean, there's no bone to pick anymore, and that's the end of that.
Quinton, just in addition to what you're saying, of course, I'm just wondering how this has actually impacted your investment strategies in any way.
Certainly, investment strategies we reconsider on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, at every board meeting. So the specific exit from commercial banking didn't really change our investment philosophy on the other assets.
So when you talk about addressing concerns raised by the public, how would you characterize the overall stability and transparency of Trustco? And of course, I know off the cuff before we came on set, you were highlighting that, or you indicated that the public certainly does have a lot of questions. And in terms of transparency rather than stability, how would you characterize that?
Yeah, stability is a precarious question. The group sits with 6 billion of assets. So I don't know in a Namibian landscape what could be more stable than that. Transparency, if I have to answer that question, the group is listed on 3 stock exchanges. We make announcements on each and every corporate activity. all the litigation we have is in the public domain. I'm here answering your questions. I don't know what more we can do for transparency.
The suspension of Trustco from the JSE as well, due to financial reporting issues, but could you just maybe extend on
Certainly.
what transpired, how the matter was also resolved, and how this has also just impacted your financials as well?
Yeah, so financial reporting is a difficult animal to deal with. You've got a whole group of experts that all quite opinionated on how financials should be put together. So in the shorter sense, or in summary, our financial reporting, our audit accounts had a difference of opinion with the experts of the JSE, and we had to ask the court for guidance. Ultimately, the court gave us guidance, and we complied immediately whatever the court held. That's what led to the suspension and the relisting of the share.
Yeah. And how are you handling things differently now as Trustco to ensure that this doesn't repeat itself?
Well, it's not something that you can handle different. Experts, auditors must take a view on your financials. They ultimately express their opinion on that. And then the regulator either has to agree with that opinion or not. I think certainly we'll try and solve a disagreement in opinions more swiftly in the future, but that's the nature of business.
While we're still with the JSE, let's also include the NSX. How are you currently performing, and what would you attribute some of the successes to?
Share price is not doing great now. We come out frankly and say that. I think we're about 80% down from our high.
Why?
Well, negative press is not good for any stock price. Let's be frank about that. But also, we're not immune to the environment that we operate in. I mean, we've also been through COVID. We've also been through a recession and a declining economy in Namibia, where the bulk of our assets sit. So we're definitely not immune to the environment that we operate in. So we see it as an opportunity to buy back as much of the stock that we can as cheap as possible, and the company is doing so aggressively.
Let me just take you back to the first point where we were talking about you exiting from the commercial bank and so forth. Maybe how this has possibly impacted the country's economy? I mean,
I doubt it seriously, Celma. Thanks for the compliment. But it's a very small move on a Namibian landscape.
Okay.
It's tiny in the scale of things. So no, I don't think it would have any impact.
We also touched a little bit on diversifying investments, but do you believe Namibia's current investment policies are conducive perhaps for business growth? Is there a need for any policy reforms? What is your take on that?
Well, one can always aspire to do better, Celma. But Namibia currently is an absolute hot commodity on the world stage. I mean, the recent recoveries or discoveries of in our energy sector, and the stability we have in Namibia. So Namibia, whenever we travel abroad and we speak about Namibia, we get a very, very positive reception. So that bodes well for all business and attracting foreign capital to Namibia.
Were there any investment decisions that Trustco perhaps made that in hindsight you regretted?
You know, hindsight is a perfect science. And I could sit here and tell you about a lot of things that we could have done better, and, you know, a lot of things that I might have done different. However, I don't think there's one investment at the time that we made it that weren't considered a good investment. I think what we could have done different is, once we've realized that a specific investment did not follow the route that we envisaged for it, to maybe pivot a little bit quicker, or maybe change our minds or adapt to that a little bit quicker. You can always be faster. But I wouldn't change much of what happened.
Speaking of success, of course, let's just shift the focus a little bit to mining. Your diamond mining investment in Sierra Leone appears quite successful as well. Could you provide more details about this venture and perhaps its impact and how it benefits your portfolio?
Certainly, it's been an exciting ride. The group has invested north of $120 million into that specific asset, and it's really performed tremendously well. We recovered, I'm sure you've seen in the recent press, two spectacular diamonds, 391 carat diamonds, which was quite something. And 4 years ago, we also recovered a 476 carat diamond. So that asset has proven to be a large stone producer, really quite something. And more importantly, it produces forex revenue for the group. You know, we are tied to the rand and the Namibian dollar.
Yeah, the peg.
So any business that provides a natural currency hedge, you know, and raising and producing some currency for us abroad that we can bring back to Namibia, is very positive for us.
So because that was actually going to be my next question, maybe just in addition to the general plans for valuation and sale for this particular discovery.
So that asset first must bring back what we took out. So first of all, we'll try and recover as much as of our initial investment. And then then we see what the future holds. You know, Diamond's got a bright future currently, and you know, we're in the business of entering and exit businesses. So when the next opportunity comes along, we might exit it, we might increase our stake. We'll take a view then.
So what makes the geological characteristics that make the Kara district in Sierra Leone more favorable for this?
So that district, I mean, it's well written, well documented, is one of the areas that's produced, I think, 6 or 7 of the largest diamonds ever recovered worldwide. So it's no mystery that we started recovering these type of diamonds in that area. But, you know, it brings its own challenges. It's a difficult environment to operate in. You know, the geopolitical situation is quite tricky. But, you know, that's where the opportunity lies.
And Trustco is definitely going to take advantage of those particular opportunities?
Look, we're in the business to create value for our shareholders. And there where we can invest and create value for everyone that's along for the ride, we'll definitely take it.
The other thing as well is that Legal Shield has been performing quite well over the years. What would you attribute that to?
The Namibian environment. There is no better story than short-term and life insurance coupled with property in Namibia. So those are some of the first investments that the group made more than 25 years ago, and they still hold value and they keep on growing.
Let's just again expand a little bit more on how Trustco Group's holding has set some strategic plans in place. Talk to us about this particular plans in terms of growth as well, and just somehow growing the investment landscape in the country.
So we've been on an acquisitive spree the last decade, where we would acquire assets outside of what we usually do. But I think our near-term and medium-term future is to really enhance the value of the assets that we and the investments we currently hold. If we look at the insurance and the property portfolio coupled with the resources division, we really want to gain value in what we currently hold.
We also know that the economic climate hasn't been that favorable for the past few years. Has this impacted your operations in any way?
Yeah, certainly. You know, we had to close down certain businesses. During COVID, construction industry is the first one that came to mind. Really stopped and halted in its tracks. So yeah, we had to pivot. We had to make a couple of tough decisions. And again, we're not immune to the environment that we operate in.
Any plans on reviving this particular businesses?
Construction, not at the moment. I think there are construction companies in Namibia that's really worth their salt and that could probably do a better job externally than what we could do internally.
Any other plans for Trustco? What other businesses or that you're trying to venture in right now?
So I'll be difficult not to venture into something that I cannot say publicly, but we've got a Namibian focus and we've got an African focus, and we will definitely expand on the assets and the investments we currently own.
Well, Quinton, anything else you'd like to add regarding this particular discussion?
Thanks for having me and looking forward to the next one.
All right, thank you so much and all the best. And of course, there was Trustco Holdings Deputy Chief Executive Officer Quinton Z van Rooyen just contributing, or rather just giving us an update on what the institution is busy dealing with.